Hey, I'm Gabriel Green.
And I'm James Hamrick from the Underrated Podcast.
And you're listening to Story to Screen.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen Podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, both new and old. I am your host, Chris. Tonight's movie review is Kong Skull Island. It's the latest movie in the Marvel, well, not Marvel, it's kind of borrowing the Marvel Cinematic Universe type, but it's the Monster Cinematic Universe. I don't think they have a technical title for it quite yet. But anyway, tonight's guests are the guys from the Underrated Podcast, Gabriel Green and James Hamrick. Hey guys, how's it going?
Howdy. Doing pretty good.
Doing well.
Well, welcome guys to the show. We welcome you to tonight's episode. For our audience who are probably not familiar with your podcast, Gabriel, since you're the leader of that show, I'm going to give you the floor and kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your show.
Well, my name's Gabriel Green. Our podcast, Underrated, is where we take a movie that we don't think gets enough love in the world and then just kind of talk about why it's a good film. And so far we've had 27 episodes, I think. And just each week we'll cover a film or get a guest and have them bring a film they want to promote onto our show, and just trying to bring a bit more not just positivity, but try to bring the focus back towards the actual filmmaking rather than kind of whether you prefer this type of film or not. Just more try to focus on the filmmaking. That's what we do.
It started where I think we were on a Facebook site, or like a movie Facebook site, and I just almost jokingly said that if I would ever do a podcast, I would like to do one just where we defend movies that I think are underrated. And Gabriel kind of took me up on that joking offer, and that's pretty much how it all started. It's almost a complete joke initially, but 28 episodes later, we're still talking about movies.
And when did you guys start your show? Was it just recently, about a year ago?
Not even that long. I forget. Probably in the winter, sometime winter or fall last year. Okay. And your first episode, I believe, what was it? Man of Steel. So yes, that was your first episode, which I listened to that episode, and I do recommend their shows, guys. So if you're looking for a different type of movie podcast, check them out. I think they're really good, and they really do some pretty good stuff there on their show. So, but I have a request. Do you take requests live by any chance? Well, well, it depends what it is.
Equilibrium, Christian Bale's Equilibrium.
Well, maybe we can have you on to record on that one.
Well, I wasn't trying to bring myself onto the show, but I was requesting maybe for you guys to review that show. But if you do invite me to be on there, I would be happy to accept it. So, but I'm not trying to get into your show right there.
No, that'd be awesome.
But anyway, so I think we'll go ahead and jump into our review for Kong Skull Island.
These are photos of an island in the South Pacific.
The place where myth and science meet.
We use explosives to shake the earth, helping us to map the surface of the island.
You're dropping bombs. Scientific instruments.
Is that a monkey?
Magnificent.
You knew that thing was out here?
I'm sorry for your men, Colonel. But if you want to make their sacrifice worthwhile, get us home. with proof. Monsters exist.
Whoa. Your friend there can put that down. What the hell is this place?
That's Kong. He's king around here. Kong's a pretty good king. Keeps to himself mostly. Well, you don't go into someone's house and start dropping bombs unless you're picking a fight.
What you just heard was the original trailer for Kong Skull Island. It stars Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, and Samuel L. Jackson. This is, again, the new part in the monster movie universe that's not related to Universal or The Mummy or anything like that. This is completely its own thing that was started in Godzilla, which will eventually lead up to a Godzilla vs. King Kong movie, which we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But anyway, I'm gonna give you the floor, Gabriel. What did you think of Kong Skull Island? Initial impressions.
I liked it, didn't love it. I had heard some of the mixed reviews that first came out of it, so I kind of went in with tempered expectations. And while I definitely enjoyed it, there's the great sense of style and just fun to it. It's not as good as I wish it was, just being the next King Kong movie. Mm-hmm. But it's still fun.
Pretty similar. I think that reading reviews from a lot of sources that I typically agree with, same with Gabe, helped temper my expectations, because to me King Kong is kind of just a staple of American cinema. I know a lot of people complain about Jackson's one, being too long and things of that nature, but to me, his version was like a bombastic, over-the-top masterpiece, and I love everything about it. And so I wanted this movie to continue the trend of treating this character and this story with the same amount of respect. And it kind of treated itself like a B-movie monster, or a B-monster movie, which I was okay with, because I kind of knew that going in. And it is I believe the official term is Monsterverse, the legendary Monsterverse.
Is that how it's going? Okay.
And so, given that this King Kong is going to be fighting Mothra most likely at some point, and that's something that the American King Kong, has never really done. So I get why it's different, but it was enjoyable for what it was.
Okay. For me, I might come up across as a little bit more positive about this film. I really enjoyed myself. It was, I kind of put it in the category of dumb, fun, matinee theater experience. Like it delivers on what it promises. You want King Kong? Here's plenty of King Kong fighting monsters. That's what you get. I think, I think that's the thing about this film, is that it actually works that way, because it's not about plot. It's just out there. They just throw all these things. It's not I get the sense that it's not interested in telling a story. It's not interested in defining these characters. It's not interested in topping or trying to beat down the original King Kongs, or any of the previous King Kongs for that matter. All of which I personally enjoyed. I mean, I love the original 33 version. I mean, that movie exists on such a great pedestal, and for all of its flaws, I still enjoy Peter Jackson's version of King Kong as well. I think that's a great cinematic experience, and it was also kind of neat to just see him do something different outside of Lord of the Rings, but yeah, that's where I really enjoyed the film, because it wasn't taking itself too seriously. The plot itself. It's scary. There are moments where the film is scary, and I think it's actually effective in some of its jump in your seat moments. But I think that's where it really succeeds, is that it's not trying hard at all, and I think that's where it kind of works in a weird way. I don't know if any of you would agree with that, or maybe even understand that point of view that I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I felt it was very self-assured in what kind of style it wanted to be, and that all worked. Yeah, I mean, even with whatever disappointments I have, I still had a lot of fun watching this movie. I mean, it pretty much knows what it is, and it delivers mostly just about everything it promises, and when it's good, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, James?
Yeah, so I definitely understand the point of view that, it is what it is. It's not trying to be anything more than what it is. And because I look at it from that perspective, that's why I do enjoy it as a film overall. I think my biggest criticism is that it was way more effective at being that in the first half than it was in the second half. Are we talking about spoilers?
Yeah, let's go ahead. So, folks, let's go ahead. We're going to go and jump into spoilers right now for Kong. So go ahead. Yeah, what were some stuff that stood out to you?
Okay, so I actually really, really like the first half of this film. The prologue of the planes going down in World War II leading up to Kong being revealed, the old footage, John Goodman getting Monarch off the ground, all of that was awesome. I loved the initial stuff on the island. The helicopters going through the clouds is just a fantastic scene. This whole sequence of dropping the bombs, it just had this crazy, fun Vietnam style of film, and it was the music selection, the camera work, it was all great. I think where this movie kind of began to lose me was whenever Chapman, Toby Kebbell's character, died. And it seemed like after that, the movie felt like it didn't kill enough people in the first half. So people who kind of behaved as somewhat competent and intelligent people in the first half just started making stupid decisions in order to give the movie more deaths. And I think the death by the spider was the only death that I really thought worked. Everything, like the pterodactyls randomly killing him, and then everybody just kind of brushes it off like, oh, well, let's get back on the boat. And then John Goodman, who's been like this main character, just kind of dies in an unceremonious way, and he was never really developed past the island. And so, I don't know, it just felt like it got to a certain point, which is, I think, around halfway, where it just started doing everybody started acting like they were in an 80s horror movie, where it's, let's do the thing we know shouldn't be done. And if they behaved like that for the first half of the movie, I would have enjoyed it even more, because they're just all, silly dumb people. This is a silly movie, but the first half really worked. It was a really well-made, well-crafted film. So to see these characters just kind of fall into typical movie tropes was a little bit disappointing to me. I think that the only two characters that worked from start to finish was Samuel Jackson. I thought he was a great character, great writing, fully understood his motivation, and John C. Reilly, because he was just a joy to watch in the movie.
Okay. And please, this is an open conversation, guys, so you guys can just throw in something at any time. But now one thing I want to... I have a problem. I have an issue with the cast, and actually with the story, because when you look at the original King Kong, I would say that this movie has no plot to it at all. I would say there's no plot. Can you honestly tell me what the plot is? They go to this island, but what's going on? Are they because apparently, besides Goodman kind of saying, yeah, he knew about something existing on this island, you don't really get a sense of what these characters are trying. They just seem to be in this situation. Yeah. There's...
I think Jackson, I guess, he has a plot. The other characters not so much, but I think, and yeah, he does. He has kind of a purpose and direction. The other people are just kind of trying to live, and that works well enough, but without kind of a sufficient motivation to get there in the first place. Because in let's say Jackson's King Kong, he's going there to make the movie, then to kidnap Kong. This one, all of our main characters have no real motivation. The only one with an actual motivation is Samuel Jackson's character. That's one of the reasons I liked him so much.
Mm-hmm. But even then, he's a character. his arc kind of gets lost because at the beginning, at times, not all the time, but I mean, once his men go down, I mean, that really kind of builds up that kind of, that let's go hunt these guys down, let's get revenge, type of mentality. Because it seems like war is the thing war and violence is the thing that motivates him. And I don't know if this movie is being a commentary on the Vietnam War conflict. I don't know if it is kind of an anti-war state. I do have something to say about that, but I don't know if the movie is trying to be that or a propaganda piece. I don't think it has. If it is, it's very, very loose. Because the thing that that's coming to my mind is that this feels like very much like an 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, like Commando or the original Predator. Because it has those vibes to it where it's just nonsensical, people in these situations, and there's nothing, and it's just the action. The action's just driving the stuff. But here, I think that's where it kind of works in that sense. But yeah, I think Jackson has the most well-defined character, and even leading up to the end. And one thing, and people seem to be pointing to this line. It's the line where he says, people should not know that exists. Which I find, and people have been really seem to be gravitating towards that line. And people have been kind of saying that there's a complexity there. There's something there about that line. Do you guys see anything significant about that line at all?
It reminded me a little bit of Jack Nicholson's speech in the end of A Few Good Men. Mm-hmm. Just about like we have to go fight these people so that the rest of the world can stay safe in their beds. So I guess I mean it's never really explored, but I guess it's taking on the mentality of the guy who kind of manufactures danger and war so he can kind of have a perfect purpose or something.
Yeah, to me, it seemed where, I got the vibe that he may not even have really meant it, or even if he did, it wasn't his actual motivation. He wanted to say something that made him seem like the good guy in wanting to attack Kong. He wanted to go after Kong, and if they'll buy that his reason is, well, we got to protect everybody, then that's what he'll say.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have been saying there should have that idea that whatever that line is trying to implicate or what it's stating feels like the movie itself doesn't want to explore that idea. Is he truly fighting for the people, or is he truly fighting for his own personal pleasure? Because that's been his lifestyle. He's been in war for God knows how long. Now, one thing, the cast, you got a top-notch cast. I actually, it's not the characters that you remember. It's just the actors themselves. They are given barely nothing to play with other than to just bring themselves, their personality. Alison Brie, who is a phenomenal actress in her own right, you're thinking she's going to be, the Anne Darrow, the Fay Wray character, the damsel in distress. None of that at all. And I don't know if the director was kind of and I noticed sometimes he kind of plays with he might play with the tropes that we expect from Kong, maybe the breaking of the jaws. Oh no, he doesn't do that. The kidnapping of the girl. No, he doesn't do that. He throws a lot of the similar tropes that we expect from a Kong film out the window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think just the core themes of this film is, I think one of the main themes of the original Kong, most of the films, kind of mankind. They find something amazing, and then they destroy it. They take it, they commercialize it, and destroy it. This one, very similarly to 2014's Godzilla, seems to be basically saying that people are utterly insignificant. This world has its own forces that will do what they want, and the best we can do is kind of get out of the way.
I do think that theme kind of shows up in this movie, but I was actually a really big fan of the 2014 Godzilla, and I think that theme was front and center in that movie. Whereas in this one, I think that this one almost has a missed opportunity because you have a character like John Goodman who feels as if we have to discover this. We have to present this to mankind. It's our duty almost. And the movie is kind of missing its Ken Watanabe of Godzilla, whereas no, we don't need to try to involve ourselves in this. We need to let nature sort itself out as opposed to feeling like we have to do this. But you don't have that character. So any idea that there might be an actual message or theme to kind of oppose John Goodman's character, it gets lost as soon as they get to the island, and it's just, well, let's escape in 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's all mayhem, and it's not. And I don't feel like it's really interested in saying anything at all. I think it feels more like that 80s kind of mindless action film, like Schwarzenegger stuff, and I feel like. And I don't know, and maybe that's kind of deliberate on his part because that's something like we've seen that before, or that idea has been explored before. Let's just deliver on what this property has to offer, action-wise, and spectacle-wise, and I think that's why, for the most part, it succeeds in those areas. But I will say this though, I think the Godzilla movie is actually better. Because it has a human thread, a plot to it that actually works. Because in that movie, it's all about, family. It's about the relationship of a family and them trying to get back together. That's the core plot of that film, but it's in the midst of this big Godzilla epic. Mm-hmm. That's what makes that movie, at least in my opinion, whether you love it or not, that's what I like about that film, and makes it so, made it a little bit unique. Now, does Godzilla himself suffer because of that? Yeah, and I think maybe this movie it's kind of maybe a victim of those criticisms, because there's not enough Godzilla in this movie, so you need, so okay guys, we need to add plenty of King Kong in here. And I think and I think the movie itself kind of loses that human element to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to bring up Peter Jackson's King Kong so much, but to me, what that movie proved was that you can have amazing action sequences of monster mayhem, but have it not come at the cost of great characters. Because I loved Andy Serkis as a side character. I forget the actor's name. He's actually been cast in Godzilla 2.
Lumpy or something?
Or no, it's the that's his name, but it's the actor who he's in Super 8, and he's been cast as the lead in Godzilla 2. But he's the actor who's very conceited. But it's just a series of these unique side characters, and Jamie Bell's character and Colin Hanks' character. I know these people, they're all fleshed out, and they all have their own motivations, and they're all different from each other, and we know why they're there, and we know what they want to get back. And all of that human drama is there. And yet we have one of the, in my opinion, greatest monster fights ever with King Kong and the 3 V-Rexes. And they get tangled up in the vines. He's fighting, got them both in headlocks. It's some of the greatest monster action ever. And so we know from past films that we can have a good human story amidst just all-out chaos, visual chaos. It's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I do think they kind of wrongly course-corrected based on the criticism of Godzilla, where I think they kind of misinterpreted the criticism, because a lot of it wasn't that there was too much humans. I think you could have had the same amount of humans, but just show Godzilla more. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest criticism of it was, Bryan Cranston was a great lead, and Aaron Taylor Johnson was just too bland. And so to me, instead of saying, well, let's get a more developed and charismatic lead, they just said, well, let's drop a lead altogether. Let's just have people barely fleshed out and focus solely on monster action. Mm-hmm. And so I wish that they had just tried to make better characters as opposed to essentially having no real characters.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like Tom Hiddleston, I mean, he's an adventurer and he's like a mercenary. What is he trying to do? Nothing. There's nothing to him. He's just trying to get the people to this other side of the island. And Alison Brie, you know, the interesting thing is that this is a movie. You would think that with this being, you know, we're in the 21st century, we are still kind of, we're still kind of in the aftermath of the war on terrorism, you know. And this is a movie about, and the backsetting of this movie is Vietnam, a very complex conflict that some people, a majority of people, believe that America should not have been involved with, and it's not making any commentary at all about, you know, about about Vietnam. It's not saying anything about that war. It's not saying anything about the war on terrorism or anything like that. It's not interested in any of those things at all, or bringing up, you know, or even like bringing up the human aspects of war. I mean, you have that one moment where that guy, he just grabs the grenade, and I know it's an old movie cliche of where the guy is about to sacrifice himself. He grabs the grenades and he's about to, like, okay, come on, eat me, eat me, eat me. It's like, nope. It's a gag. It's a gag, but there's nothing to it. There's no commentary to it at all.
Yeah, I didn't know why he decided to kill himself right then. It's a good scene. It could have been a great scene if we knew who this guy was and why he's making decisions. Ultimately, it's a good gag, and I think one of the more interesting kills in the film. But there's nothing. It's a character sacrificing himself. We should care. Instead, we just laugh.
Yeah, and I kind of hate that scene, only because it was what I was talking about earlier, where this guy was, even though he wasn't really developed, he was somewhat likable before. You know, in his mind, Samuel Jackson's character, I believe his name, Preston Packard, he's never led us astray before. Let's follow him. He was somewhat a character, and he had reasons behind what he did. Even when you knew that it wasn't the right thing to do to follow Packard, he still did it because in his mind it made sense. And then all of a sudden, it was like what I said, it's like the movie felt like it hadn't met a death quota, so like, oh, and then this guy decides that he's gonna sacrifice himself, and we'll make it a gag, and the movie will move on as if it never really... It just felt really unnecessary and out of left field for that character. Yeah. And the movie never even presented... It would have been one thing if they said, you know, we're not going to be able to outrun this thing, or somebody's got to do something, and then he stepped up. But it's like everybody's running away, and it's like, slow motion, let me turn around with my grenades and do this. And we never saw it coming, and it didn't really amount to anything.
Well, and then he also made that other speech early in the film where what was it again? Like, he took the gun or he showed that, what was that speech again that he gave to that one guy? He said that, about that Vietnamese person who had never seen a gun before. What was that all about?
Sometimes you don't have an enemy until you make one, I think is what it said, which I guess wraps up all, basically, like that's all the commentary this film has. They don't go into any further, really, besides Sam Jackson's madness.
That is just, there was, I don't feel like, but I don't know if there was something he was trying to say. I mean, besides with that point, but also about the whole thing about the gun and him giving, like, the guy who'd never seen a gun before and he gave it to him or something like that. It was a very, I don't feel like, you think that's going to have some sort of payoff or some bigger idea. It doesn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how his sacrifice and that, because I remember that speech, it happened, and like you, I was like, okay, this is going to pay off in some way later. And to me, the only way it could have is if there is something about his sacrifice that is symbolic of something he said in that speech, but I didn't get anything from it.
No. And then you look at Brie Larson. She says, okay, I'm an anti-war photographer. Was that just a statement that she made? I mean, so I'm not too sure. What's the bigger, is that just a one-off note and then we go off?
We get a lot of that. I think just each character has their introduction, they have their one or two traits, and then let's feed them to some monsters. It seems it's just basic dressing to get us to tried to get us to connect without doing any actual work.
I think maybe another thing too is that they just feel like they're like kind of one-off mouthpieces of an idea, and then they don't do it. And again, like obviously they don't do anything with them at all. Now
they just forgot the idea.
Exactly, they forgot the idea or what they're trying to be commenting on or something like that.
The idea was King Kong punching ugly lizards looks really awesome.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
It was,
and it does.
Yeah. Now, one thing that it was weird was that I don't, not seeing any dinosaurs because I'm so used to seeing King Kong fighting at least a T-Rex of some kind. Now, what were some things that you did like? What were some? I mean, I know we kind of talked about a lot of things that we did like, but what were some other things that actually? Let's start with the things that we didn't like at all. James, we'll start with you. What were some things that you didn't like about the film?
That I did not?
Yeah.
Okay. I think really the biggest thing that I didn't like about it was the fact, it was kind of what Gabe said earlier, where every character is given an introduction. And honestly, as far as introductions go, they're not necessarily bad, which makes the rest of the film that much more frustrating. And I think the biggest one of the biggest examples of this is Tom Hiddleston's character. Mm-hmm. We're introduced to him as somebody who went off to the war to find something. And he never came back. And John Goodman is implying that clearly he must have not found what he went looking for. And so, if you didn't find it at war, maybe you'll find it at Skull Island. We're never told what he was looking for. We're never told why he didn't find it. We're never told why he might find it at Skull Island. And we're never told if he did find it at Skull Island. This whole idea of a man trying to find something, whether it's something about himself or some sort of purpose, we're not told what he's trying to do. We're not told why he didn't succeed. It feels like we're being told that this is a human. He's got his problems. He went to war to try to do something but couldn't do it, and that's why he's here at Skull Island. That's his motivation. That's all you need. And so it was set up for something that they never even attempted at capitalizing on.
No.
And the same with John Goodman's character. I don't know how y'all took it. I almost took it as if the film was implying that he saw Godzilla. That Godzilla was what attacked that ship.
Yeah, me too. I took that as well. Unless he was talking about the other monster at the very end that King Kong faced. But I always thought that was a reference to Godzilla.
Yeah, and so we have this character whose mission is to prove that these characters exist. He doesn't want people to think of him as a crazy person. He thinks that this is a message that needs to be heard. He gets to Skull Island and he has the one conversation with Samuel L. Jackson where he says, monsters are real. They were here long before us, blah, blah, like he has something important to say. I forgot he was even in the movie until he died after that point. He looks up with his camera and he gets eaten. I was like, oh yeah, John Goodman's in this. That's right.
Yeah.
Because he was we needed the head guy to get them there.
Yeah.
And then the movie decided that this guy shouldn't even be a character anymore. He's got us here. He's served his purpose. Let's kill him off.
Yeah.
And so just their treatment of characters where they present them to you in their first scene. Brie Larson, she's anti-war. She's looking to make a story that counts. She has that little run-in with Samuel Jackson's character. I'm an anti-war photographer. Never comes to fruition. She's on Skull Island and she needs to get off.
Yes.
Well, she's still anti-war. What's her point with Kong? What is her opinion on? It doesn't matter. She's here. She needs to get off.
Yeah.
And so I think if the movie really wanted to not be about characters at all and just be about monsters, I don't understand the purpose of setting these characters up, setting up potential payoffs to their ideas and not doing it. It's just say Tom Hiddleston likes adventure. Get him there. Don't pretend he has some sort of mysterious past. Brie Larson likes adventure. She wants to take a picture of whatever's there. She's interested in it. Why does she have to have this core idea that's never going to be explored? Mm-hmm. I think that if it wanted to just be a B monster movie, don't pretend like you had these characters who might be developed if you're not going to do anything with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it as we see in the film, you don't need to give them a lot. Samuel Jackson, he's a soldier without a war. He has to create a war. That arc is set up and paid off. John C. Reilly's character, he wants to get home. He wants to see his son. And those parts actually affected and moved me. So really all they had to do was give Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, a single motivation, and it would have worked. The other characters, I think the rest of the cast of characters are distinctive enough to work for side characters. It's just the two ones we spend the most time with, the two leads, have nothing.
No romantic interest towards each other. There's no romance. I mean, that again, it's thrown out the window. Now, one thing I want to talk about Kong real quickly. I mean, what did we think of Kong himself? You know, the actual. Do you think they actually did a great job on him? I mean, I actually kind of thought that he kind of reminded me a little bit more of Bigfoot. There's kind of a Bigfoot vibe to him, actually, in the way that he walks.
Yeah, as an effect, it's a great effect. I mean, there's just a sense of weight and scale. They got actually, Toby Kebbell, looking into the credits, he did some of the motion capture work, which maybe is why they got him on the film for such a small role, because he did Warcraft. So I guess, and also they got Terry Notary, who's a famous movement coach, to do the thing. So the performance, the character, and the just presence is great. And whenever he's smashing things, it's awesome. He's a bit more of a basic animal than like Jackson. We keep going back to Jackson's Kong, but they did it so well. So kind of compared to that, like he's not much of a character. He's just kind of a territorial animal that protects his own. And beyond that, we don't get much. But for what it is, they played it for all it was worth, and I definitely enjoyed his aspect.
Now, the one thing I do have a problem with, it was weird because when you're starting off the movie, there's no hint of King Kong. Like in the original movies, leading up to it, even no matter, I mean, we got to King Kong really quickly. Where in like the other films, it took quite a bit of time to get there. But the thing that was that there was no myth building around it. Like there was no rumors. There was none of that stuff going on. Other than maybe what John Goodman's, hints of something, but there was nothing specifically about, there was no mentioning of, have you ever heard of Kong? There was nothing like that at all, so there was no build up towards that. Once we get to Kong, here's Kong. Out of nowhere, so there didn't really seem to be a build up with the character at all. And then another problem that I have with Kong, but more so in relation with the humans, is that they're like, oh, he's so, he's his paradise or his habitat is being destroyed. Let's side with him. I didn't see any. This monkey took out all of your helicopters, a good chunk of your unit, and you're going to go ahead and trust this animal, this wild animal, to save you or something like. I don't see their trust towards him. Where did that come from?
We did have the scene where like she goes to try and help the injured water buffalo, and he lifts it off and walks away. And you have obviously John C. Reilly explains the whole mythology of the island, how the skull crawlers come out and Kong protects them. So I mean, I guess it's kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's we don't. I mean, he's dangerous, but he's protecting us from something worse, kind of thing.
Yeah, but for me, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In past King Kong movies, the motivation the audience, the reason the audience cares about him is because they like him as a character. The reason that the characters who do side with him is because he has a personality. And it's weird because they kind of took it a different route in here. The reason that I took, that I wanted Kong to win and that I felt like the characters wanted Kong to win was because he was essentially the barrier to this village that was there. And so beforehand, we didn't want Kong to die because we like Kong. And in this one, I like Kong, sure, he's fine, but I don't want Kong to die because these people are going to die. And so that's kind of the motivation keeping Kong alive this time. And I guess because, Kong doesn't die in this one, the movie doesn't have to be as concerned about making you care about him, because that's the whole emotional punch of the other movies is that, the 33 version and the Peter Jackson version, he's a great character. You care about him. He's got personality, like the way he's knocking down Anne and laughing about it. He's displaying almost human emotions, so you become attached to him. And you do that because he's going to die, and that's the whole point of the movie, is that now you feel sad, and it's a tragedy. And this one, Kong doesn't die. He has to live to fight Godzilla, so you don't have to worry so much about making the audience fall in love with him. But to me, that does come to the detriment of the movie, where it's, yeah, he could have just been any monster. He's this big monster that shows up and punches the bad guys. It's not really a character.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited that I think, like Gabe said, the effects are great. Watching him fight monsters is super cool. I can't wait to see what fighting Godzilla looks like. But, you know, if this movie had carried itself the way the others would have and caused me to fall in love with Kong, I would be rooting for Kong in the new King Kong vs. Godzilla. Whereas now, Godzilla was almost given more personality in that one. Like this big guy who has to come out of sleep to protect us from the forces of nature that shouldn't be awry. And now I'm going to be rooting for Godzilla based on these two movies. And so, I don't know. It felt like, as cool as he looked, he wasn't a character. And he's always been a character beforehand.
No, exactly. Now, there was one moment towards the fight, I actually have 3 moments that I kind of smirked at, laughed at. Let me actually, the moment when Brie Larson is actually on the hilltop, and then Kong and the other monster are about to go into conflict with each other. I don't know about you guys, but the way that she's posed up there, it's the first time she fires the flare gun. I had to turn. My dad kind of told me, well, she was signaling the boat that's coming from upstream, but the way that it was done, it made it seem like she was just there to, like, okay, I'm just add a cool effect in the air, and it just, in the way that the flare lights just go around, it was just. Did any of you get that idea that it was just she was just standing there adding an effect, or did any of you immediately think like, oh yeah, she's signaling the boat? It was just weirdly done.
I felt like it makes sense. Like, yeah, I knew that she was trying to signal the boat, but I think the movie decided that she needed to signal the boat because they wanted that cool effect. Like, we need a cool we need to involve her in this fight. We can't have her on the boat. We need a human element to this fight. Kong has to save somebody. So Brie Larson needs to fire the signal and make it look cool.
But just the way that it was done, it made it seem like, is she signaling the beast? Is she signaling the... It was just weird. It was just oddly done. And, and then the moment when Kong defeats the what is it called? What is it called again? The
Skullcrawler?
Skullcrawler, thank you.
You call it whatever you want to like.
Yeah. Skullhead. Whatever it is. He has Alison Brie in his hand, and he goes into the mouth. He pulls out the guts. Ooh, that was brutal, by the way. But he pulls her out, and she's fine. He had, first of all, how was he able to grab anything in there with his hand being closed? And 2, he pulls. It would have been great if he did a blooper there where it's like, Alison Brie guts. And then he puts his hand on the rock.
I think it was the Skullcrawler's tongue was wrapped around his wrist, which is why it got sucked in, and he just yanked it out with enough force to pull out the tongue and whatever was attached to it.
Okay, that makes sense now. Okay, but still, the fact that she was able to escape from that without being harmed. Yes, it's a movie, but that moment kind of took me out a little bit right there. Okay, now I have one thing about Samuel L. Jackson. It feels like Samuel L. Jackson was cast to just do monologuing, because he gives that speech in the storm sequence, and he's talking about Icarus and the legend of Icarus and him flying towards the sun. I understand what he was trying to indicate that moment, because they're symbolically they're heading into the sun. They're going to risk something. They're going to be risking their own lives and go into peril. Now, the moment when he looks at Kong, the first time he sees Kong, and everybody goes into slow-mo. You remember that scene, guys?
Mm-hmm.
He got I don't know what it was, but the moment that all of the guys were passing him in slow-mo, in my mind, I saw him going into live motion mode and saying, "Hey everybody, This is Samuel L. Jackson. I'm here to interrupt this movie to bring you an important message about Visa MasterCards. Visa, what's in your wallet? I was expecting him to do something like that. I don't know why.
I can't say I was expecting that.
But I'm just joking, but again, it's just because of Samuel Jackson and just the persona that they've built around him.
I will never complain about a Samuel Jackson monologue.
Yeah, I was about to say, I just watched Pulp Fiction for the very first time in my life, and at this point, I don't even need an excuse to hear Samuel L. Jackson monologue. Like, if they want to put him in the movie just to give these speeches, I'm okay with that. He just delivers them so well.
Since he is one of two characters that's given anything, I'm not complaining about the little depth he does get. And most of that's through the monologues.
Yeah. Now, the one part, I wasn't expecting it, but it was just, that's what just came into my mind. Him just interrupting everything, and everybody is still running past him in slow-mo, but he's going in real life mode, and then he just goes to this, like, sponsor ad. Like, this movie is brought to you by Visa MasterCard, what's in your wallet? What was the other thing that I like? Oh, okay. There was nothing else that I wanted to bring up. Oh, the post-credit scene. Did any of you stay for the post-credit scene?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So... Did any of you know that this was going to be connected to Godzilla?
Yeah.
Okay, so all of you...
I knew that beforehand.
Okay. Okay, and I knew it too. So are you guys excited for this possibility? Not possibility. It seems like it's going to happen unless something else changes the plans. But so it seems like we got Mothra. I wish I knew my Godzilla monsters better.
Rodan.
Yeah, and then
King Ghidorah.
Okay. Now, was that? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that an actual photograph of Godzilla that they got in underground, or was that a painting?
I think that was just a painting.
Okay. It looked like it was it looked like it was actually him. They managed to get a picture of him. It's like, how is that possible? But what was it again? Yeah. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that film, if and when it happens? I mean, are you excited for that possibility? Are you kind of like, I know why you're doing this. You're trying to repeat what Marvel, Avengers, Justice League, etc.
Honestly, that post-credit scene may have been my favorite part of the whole movie.
Really?
Because I am a huge monster movie fan. I'm still essentially an 8-year-old boy in that regard. I can sit down and watch monster movies all day and be entertained. I'm literally going through the old silly 60s and 70s Godzilla series right now, just between classes. And so I really, really, really enjoyed the 2014 Godzilla, and I thought that that's exactly what a modern-day Godzilla should look like. So seeing the painting of King Ghidorah, my mind instantly went to, if Godzilla looks this great with CGI and modern technology, how awesome is this going to look? So if the purpose of a after the credits stinger is to get you excited, then this one passed with flying colors. And cutting to black and having Godzilla roar.
Oh yeah,
I left that theater super excited, having just seen a movie that was kind of meh on. So I would say that the after credits scene really, really worked a lot for me.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, I have like no prior attachment at all to most of the classic monsters, especially the ones surrounding the Godzilla franchise. I haven't seen any of the previous ones besides Roland Emmerich's and Gareth Edwards. So honestly, for me, it's more of just a matter of waiting to see who the director is, to see how excited I'm going to be for it, kind of thing. Like personally, I think the idea of a giant moth sounds really, really dumb. But honestly, I'm more of a wait and see when I hear movies are announced. Just who's making it is more interesting to me than what's in it.
Yeah. Do we have a director and a writer yet on?
It's the same person who directed Krampus. He wrote the script and he's been officially hired to direct.
For which one? Just Godzilla 2, right?
For Godzilla 2, yes.
Oh, so is there anybody attached yet to King Kong and Godzilla?
I don't even know if that's announced yet.
Yeah, it's announced. It's officially titled just Godzilla vs. King Kong, and I think they even have a date set in 2020. So Godzilla 2 is 2019, and King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus King Kong is a year later.
But no team yet. They don't have a director yet on that project.
Not yet.
Okay. Who would you like to see directed? Is there anybody you would like
These are weird times because they're picking out directors that, first of all, most people haven't even heard of, and that haven't directed films of this ilk. And often it works out quite well. I mean, the Russo brothers were TV directors basically before this. I mean, Gareth Edwards made one independent film. So I don't even know right now.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure of anybody who I know just gets scale right. In all honesty, I think my number one preference would be a newcomer because I do really enjoy seeing kind of indie filmmakers be given these big franchises just to see what happens. But if I had to choose a well-known director, I would love just to see Peter Jackson come back. I think he gets scale and monsters and fun and everything we love about popcorn entertainment, he just completely gets. So I would love to see King Kong fight Godzilla as directed by Peter Jackson.
Sure. You know, I hate to throw this name out there, but because I don't... Matt Reeves would be a choice for me because of the Planet of the Apes and... films and Cloverfield. Cloverfield. And honestly, I don't even know if his Batman's even going to happen. I have so much doubts if any of those movies like Gotham Siren and the Batman will ever even happen to begin with.
They've all been financial successes, so it's coming.
That doesn't mean anything. I mean, like Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a success, and you had
it was a disappointment.
Yeah,
it was like disappointing in the box office. Actually, I think,
but it made $700 million. That's enough to justify, because whatever they say, like, okay, well, this movie needs to make this amount of money, and when it doesn't, like Man of Steel made a good chunk of change, made like almost $700 million, and they were like, no, that's not what we wanted. You got enough money right there, so I don't know what you're complaining about. I understand there's a lot of business stuff attached to it, and I know that maybe the studio sees a smaller amount of that money, but what was I going to say? But, back to Matt Reeves. Yeah, I think he would bring something kind of interesting to that world, and especially like War of the Apes. I mean, that movie looks amazing.
He would bring a very, very similar tone to Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. I mean,
yeah.
Thinking about the film, the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and that film lined up, they're very similar. So
tonally, yeah. Which I think would actually work, especially for me, considering I did enjoy Godzilla a lot more than King Kong. So if this next movie is going to borrow one of the two tones, and Matt Reeves as a director is very tonally and visually similar to Gareth Edwards, I'd be all on board for him doing that.
Yeah.
I think I did actually just read something today saying that they have now set a date to put the Batman into production. And if it does well, I almost assume that he may come back to even do a sequel for that. So I'm not sure how free Matt Reeves would be for it. Yeah. But I think he could do it. He could give it a really cool spin, I think.
Yeah, let me think of some... you know what? Rupert Wyatt, who actually did the first Planet of the Apes, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He's a guy that I've actually really liked, and I thought he could actually... And The Gambler, I thought he did a really good job with the Mark Wahlberg's Gambler. I think he could bring some really interesting stuff to the table. I think they'll just have to go with somebody of a lesser, kind of an indie filmmaker, up and coming. You know what? You may not. I don't know if any of you would know this guy, but he's actually the director of Maggie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Maggie. That came out like a couple of years ago, and he brought something very interesting to that film. Where it was about he focused on the relationships. Now I know but just tonally of what he was able to do, because he kind of reversed the whole zombie tropes, and he focused on the drama in the midst of this zombie apocalypse, and I think it was really effective, very, very effective. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I really like that movie.
You've seen it? It's great. It's a great little cinematic gem that I don't think got. It was actually one of my top 5 favorite films of that year.
getting a director who I think does focus on relationships, I think will work, because I did look up the cast, because they do have 3 confirmed cast members for Godzilla 2, and it is Kyle Chandler was the name of the actor. I couldn't remember. He was in Super 8, Argo, and I really like him as an actor. He's playing he's the lead. His wife is being played by Vera Farmiga, who I think is incredibly good. I loved her in the Conjuring movies, and Millie Bobby Brown is their daughter, and she was fantastic in Stranger Things. So you have 2 people playing parents who I really love the actors. You have this young actress who they're probably going to want to put front and center in everything that she's going to be in, given that everybody loved her in Stranger Things. So when you have actors who are all great playing a family unit, I think that focusing on the relationships amidst monster chaos would probably work, since you have actors who can do it well.
Yeah. Again, yeah, I don't know who they would go with, but I think, and I don't know what, and again, we don't know what this film's going to look like or what it's going to be like, and if it's going to bring in the human aspects at all. We don't know, because it's still so early. I mean, they have to start, I would assume that they would have to start principal photography at least by next year, to start at least getting things ready, because I can't imagine, because this is, a lot of money is going to be invested into this one, and if this doesn't work, I don't know what will. How much has King Kong made so far? Do any of you have a number on that one?
I don't have a number, but I know it's considered a success.
151 million.
Okay, 151 million. How much did the Godzilla make? Was it like 500? I have a feeling this movie is going to probably be a little bit more successful than Godzilla, actually.
Yeah, I think it has a bit more immediate rewatch value than
529 million. So I think this one has a little bit more box office potential for it. I think it could make 600, but this movie, I think it's got a bit of a rough course, because next week is Beauty and the Beast. That movie, I don't know. I don't know if that movie, I think it's going to have a huge opening. Afterwards, I'm not too sure. Just from the stuff that I've been hearing. And then you got Power Rangers.
Which could go either way.
It could go either way. I'm curious, though, about that one. But anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Guys...
I would like to... we kind of ragging on the film, but I did enjoy it. Would you mind if I went through a couple of positives I liked?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing I absolutely loved throughout the entire film is just Jordan Vogt Roberts' direction. Just every frame and shot looked gorgeous. There wasn't a single bad shot in the film. He put a lot of work into just composing cinematic shots, and I always really appreciate that. So even if I didn't care about the characters, it always looked really good. And just this tone and style, especially in the first 20 minutes, was just a lot of fun. So even as I have all these criticisms, there was never a moment where I wasn't at least mildly enjoying myself throughout the film. So it's good popcorn fun. Yeah. If there's not much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they brought Larry Fong, who is Zack Snyder's usual cinematographer, so that gives, the movie is, the composition of these shots is just fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
The scene of them dropping the bombs, it seems that you see a bomb drop and they cut to a different shot of the helicopters in unison, drop another bomb, different shot of the helicopters in unison. It's such a great looking sequence. Yeah. So yeah, with all of my story complaints, this is a great looking movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those shots, especially the intro shot of Kong, with him against the sun. That's I don't know if that was practical or not. The actual sun, or if that was all digital. Minus, Kong. But no, I guess we'll go ahead and kind of wrap up our final thoughts on it. I personally, look, as much as I had problems with it, it's still a cinematic, matinee film. That's how I kind of view it. I don't know if it warrants repeat viewings. I don't know if I would even go as far as say I would want to get it on DVD. I don't think it's that type of film I would want to get. But it's a film that at least you could experience once. in the theaters. Now, just as a parental warning for kids, it does have some language, some strong language, actually, and some scary moments in it as well. So I would definitely caution children in that, parents in that area. What are your final thoughts?
I liked it. It was fine. Actually, probably the biggest takeaway I have is that I'm very fascinated to see where Jordan Vogt Roberts goes from here. I think he's obviously a very talented filmmaker, and it was mainly, I think, the script that failed him here. And all the actors are good. I really like John C. Reilly's fantastic. He has a good, solid story arc. So yeah, maybe if you like big popcorn fun, there are far worse films to find it in. It's definitely worth seeing if you enjoy just big movies.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I went in having loved Godzilla as much as I did. I was slightly disappointed, but it is still fun. And even if it weren't part of a franchise, I most likely wouldn't buy it to watch it again. But because I'm a collection freak, if it's a franchise that I plan on watching, I must own every single movie that's in it. I'll probably get it and rewatch it. And then as a side note, honestly, I think that this one should have come first.
Chronologically.
Since it comes first, chronologically, and to me, it was a missed opportunity. I think it should have come out and not have been announced to be a part of anything. Just say, hey, there's a scene after the credits. And for people to walk in thinking they're just seeing a King Kong movie, and then have drawings of Godzilla on the wall, people would have lost it. So I think that it would have made more sense to open with this and then have the after the credits scene essentially tell the audience in the movie that this is part of a bigger universe, the same way Nick Fury showed up at the end of Iron Man. But I enjoy it because it promises a bigger picture. It promises a movie that I very much am looking forward to. I'll watch it again just for fun.
Now, one thing I will say about King Kong. The resolution to that fight, there better not be a revelation where King Kong and Godzilla find out that their moms had the same name as Martha.
Even though I disagree with all of the criticism surrounding that argument, I did see a picture that did make me laugh, which is Godzilla putting his foot on King Kong and King Kong pleading, "Stop, you're letting them kill Mothra." And even though I love that movie, it was a funny jab.
Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight on tonight's episode of Story to Screen. So thank you very much, and we'll be sure to have you on again in the future for either a commentary. We might do a Batman v Superman commentary, so maybe you guys can chime in and defend that movie all you want, and then me and my crew will demolish it.
It would just end up with us yelling at each other or something.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, folks, you can find us on Facebook. Please follow us on there. Also on Twitter. Please also email us at s2spodcast@gmail.com. Send in your requests for future reviews. Please subscribe on iTunes as well. Please leave us some reviews. We could definitely use a lot more reviews on there as well. Anyway, folks, so I'm going to have to bid you all a good night. This is probably the latest that I've ever done a show like this. You know, it's 12 o'clock at night. Never done this before. But anyway, folks, so thank you all very much for joining me, and we wish you all a good night. Cheers.